The message was never meant for her. It was typed in the quiet blur of a rushed morning, sent with trembling fingers, and delivered into the wrong hands at the worst possible moment. And yet, that single mistake would change 2 lives before the sun set that same day. Before we step into this story, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the unexpected ways life heals broken hearts, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Deep Night Stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. By 8:17 a.m., Arman Qureshi had already lost the day. The sunlight streamed through the thin kitchen curtains of his small rented apartment in Karachi, catching the dust in the air and illuminating the stack of unpaid bills on the counter. His 5-year-old son, Zayan, sat at the chipped wooden table, swinging his legs and eating toast with more crumbs falling into his lap than reaching his mouth. The morning news hummed softly from a second-hand television, but Arman barely heard it. His mind was somewhere else, as it had been for the past 2 years. 2 years since the accident, 2 years since the hospital hallway that smelled of antiseptic and fear, 2 years since the day he held his wife's hand as the machines around her went silent. Every morning since then felt like trying to rebuild a house with bare hands after a storm had flattened it. He had learned to braid tiny shoelaces, pack school lunches, attend parent meetings, and smile when Zayan asked questions about heaven that no 5-year-old should have to ask. He had learned to survive, but he had never learned how to stop missing her. That morning, like so many others, he picked up his phone while rushing to put on his faded blue tie. His reflection in the cracked mirror looked older than 32. Dark circles framed his eyes. Grief had etched itself into his posture. He opened his messages, intending to send the same text he sent every few weeks when the loneliness became too heavy to carry in silence. "I miss you." It was a ritual he never spoke about. He would open the old chat thread that still bore his late wife's name and type those 3 words. The number had long been deactivated, but it didn't matter. It felt like placing flowers at a grave only he could see. But that morning, in his rush, he didn't notice that the previous night he had been messaging his boss about a report. The chat window at the top of his screen was no longer his wife's old number. Without looking, without thinking, he pressed send. "I miss you." He slipped the phone into his pocket, kissed Zayan's forehead, and hurried out into the bright Karachi day, unaware that his world had just tilted. At 9:02 a.m., his phone vibrated. He was standing in the open plan office of Al Hadid Marketing Solutions, staring at a presentation he had worked on until 2 a.m. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly. The air smelled of coffee and printer ink. He pulled out his phone casually. The message preview made his heart stop. From Meher Ansari, his boss. "I think you sent this to the wrong person." The blood drained from his face. His fingers went cold. Meher Ansari was known for her precision, her sharp mind, and her intolerance for unprofessional behavior. She had built the company from scratch after her father's bankruptcy nearly destroyed their family name. She valued boundaries. She valued discipline. She did not value emotional confusion from employees. Arman felt his chest tighten. He imagined HR meetings, awkward explanations, whispers in the office corridors. He imagined losing this job, the one lifeline that kept rent paid and Zayan's school fees covered. He quickly typed back, fingers shaking. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was not meant for you. I apologize." The seconds stretched unbearably long. Then another message came. "Come to my office." The walk to her glass-walled cabin felt like walking toward a verdict. Outside, the late morning sun blazed over the city, reflecting off nearby buildings. Inside, the office felt too cold. Every step echoed in his ears. He knocked softly. Her voice was calm. "Come in." Meher Ansari stood by the large window overlooking the busy street below. She was in her early 40s, composed, always impeccably dressed. Today she wore a cream-colored suit, her dark hair tied back neatly. The sunlight outlined her silhouette, but her expression was unreadable. Arman kept his gaze lowered. "I'm truly sorry." It was a personal message. "I didn't mean to." She raised a hand gently, not in anger, but in pause. "I know it was personal," she said quietly. The room felt smaller. She turned fully toward him then, and for the first time since he had joined the company 8 months ago, her eyes didn't look sharp. They looked soft. "You wrote, 'I miss you,'" she said. "Who was it for?" He hesitated. Something in her tone made lying feel impossible. The truth rose in his throat like a wave he could no longer hold back. "My wife," he said finally. "She passed away 2 years ago." The words hung between them like fragile glass. Silence filled the space, but it wasn't hostile. It was heavy human. Mayer's fingers tightened slightly around the phone she held. She looked down at the screen, then back at him, her voice lowered, almost to a whisper. "Say it again." He blinked, confused. "Ma'am, say it again," she repeated, her voice softer now as though she were standing at the edge of something delicate. He swallowed hard. His eyes burned unexpectedly. "I miss you," he said, barely audible. The moment shifted. It was as if something unspoken cracked open in that room. Meher looked away briefly, her composure faltering for a fraction of a second. When she spoke again, there was a tremor she couldn't quite hide. "My husband died 5 years ago," she said. "Heart attack. We were in the middle of an argument when he collapsed." Armin looked up, startled. "I never got to say I miss you," she continued, her gaze fixed somewhere far beyond the office walls. "I never got to say goodbye properly. I built this company to survive the silence. But some days, the silence still wins." The office noise outside faded into irrelevance. In that sunlit room, two people who had carried grief in isolation suddenly recognized it in each other. Meher walked to her desk slowly and sat down. She gestured for him to sit as well. It was no longer a meeting between employer and employee. It was something far more fragile. "You're raising a child alone?" she asked. "Yes," Armin nodded. "Zion, he's 5. She exhaled deeply as if processing something beyond his words. "That must be hard." "It is," he admitted, "but he's the reason I get up every morning." Something in her eyes shifted again. Respect, perhaps, or admiration. The conversation that followed was not long, but it was honest. Armin spoke of sleepless nights, of cooking burnt meals while trying to learn recipes from memory, of sitting in the school parking lot because he was afraid he wasn't enough. Meher listened without interruption, and when she spoke, she shared stories of boardrooms and hospital corridors, of pretending strength when her world had collapsed. When he finally stood to leave, expecting at least a formal warning about workplace boundaries, she surprised him. "Armin," she said gently, "you don't have to apologize for loving someone who is gone." His throat tightened, and next time, she added softly, "If you need a day off because the silence feels too loud, you tell me." He nodded, unable to speak. That afternoon, the sunlight seemed warmer. The city outside felt less suffocating. For the first time in years, Armin didn't feel entirely alone in his grief. But the day was not finished with him. At 3:15 p.m., Armin received a call from Zion's school. His heart nearly stopped again. He rushed out, fear clawing at him. The school courtyard was bright under the afternoon sun, children running, parents chatting. But Zion sat on a bench near the nurse's office, pale and quiet. He had fainted during recess. Dehydration and exhaustion. The nurse explained. "He said he didn't want to tell you he wasn't feeling well because you look tired every morning." The words struck like a blade. Zion didn't want to be a burden. Armin knelt before his son, guilt flooding his chest. Had he been so consumed by survival that he had missed the signs? He carried his son home that day under the blazing Karachi sun, whispering promises to do better. That evening, as daylight softened into golden hues, there was a knock at his apartment door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, Meher stood there, dressed more casually than he had ever seen her, holding a small bag. "I was in the area," she said simply. "You left in a hurry. I wanted to check if everything was all right." He was too surprised to protest. She stepped inside, her eyes taking in the modest apartment, the scattered toys, the drying laundry near the window. Zion peeked out from the bedroom, shy but curious. Meher crouched slightly to his level. "I hear you scared your father today." Zion offered a faint smile. She handed Armand the bag, electrolyte drinks, and some fruit. Just in case. But to a man who had felt alone for so long, it was monumental. They sat together in the small living room as evening light bathed the walls in amber. Zion fell asleep on the couch between them, his tiny hand resting against his father's leg. For a while they said nothing. Finally, Meher spoke softly. "Grief doesn't disappear, it just changes shape." Armin nodded. "And sometimes," she added, glancing at the sleeping child, "it brings people together instead of tearing them apart." He looked at her then, not as a boss, not as a symbol of authority, but as a woman who understood the quiet ache he carried. That mistaken text had opened a door neither of them knew they needed. Before this story comes to its final moment, if it has touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and comment below. Your engagement helps stories like this reach others who might need them. And here is a special request. Comment the words "second chances" if you believe healing can begin in the most unexpected ways. As the day came to an end and the city lights flickered on, Armin walked Meher to the door. The air outside was cooler now. The chaos of the morning felt distant. He hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, "I'm glad I sent that message to the wrong person." She smiled, not sadly, but hopefully. "Maybe it wasn't the wrong person," she replied. The next morning would bring new challenges, deadlines, school runs, memories that still hurt. But something had shifted in the daylight of that ordinary day. Two broken hearts had found recognition in each other. Not romance born of desperation, not love replacing loss, but companionship built on understanding. And sometimes, that is where healing truly begins. If this story moved you, don't forget to engage with the video and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even mistakes can lead to miracles.